Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast is Can We Detach and Be Free? And I know detachment is a popular issue for all of us because we know when we're attached to something, there's going to be some level of suffering in our lives. Because attachment is like an expectation. It's needing things to be a certain way or needing someone to be a certain way for us to be okay or for the situation to work out. And as much as many of us have had situations in our lives where we see we can't control other people, we see that we cannot control situations, we still stay attached to outcomes, attached to what needs to be for the world to be okay, for us to be okay, for other people to be okay. And then we start to get upset or angry at other people because they're not acting the way we need them to act or the way they should act for things to be right or just. And at some point, you come to terms with the fact that if we're always looking for things to be right or just or perfect, we're either always going to be upset or we're going to have very few people in our lives. And so we start to seek this idea of detachment. And I know I've spoken about this before, but detachment doesn't mean you're not going to care. It doesn't mean you're not going to love somebody or work really hard at work. What it is it's a separation between you and the person and you and the problem. And you give that person or that problem its own sovereignty, its own independence of you, of your identity, of your existence. Because if you can't control it, then on some level, you have to allow it to be. You do your best, you give your advice, you work your hardest, but every situation and every person has its own path in a way. If it comes to a person, then they have the right and the sovereignty, and they get to have the dignity of their own experience and their own feelings, whether we like it or not. And a situation, often after we do the best we can do, it is out of our control. And yet we sit up late at night suffering for what will be, what will the outcome be? And we wonder, how do people let go of not controlling things? How do people detach when you love something so much? And when we start to see that you can love something so much, that detachment is often the ultimate love, because you're allowing the things you care about the space that they need to be on their path, to grow and to learn. And then you start to suffer less because you're not up late at night trying to control the uncontrollable. You don't merge your identity with every situation and every person, so that suffering doesn't choke you, and that suffering doesn't stop your breath, and that suffering doesn't make you cross boundaries and do things and say things to people that maybe that you help, maybe you don't. But in the end, we always fall short if we're not able to detach. And also, when we're attached, we don't always do the best job. We don't always say the right thing because we need it so badly to be a certain way that sometimes we don't even have the strength and the resilience to make the best decision. Because sometimes the best decision is scary, it's uncertain. And if we need it to be a certain way, or we need that person to act a certain way, we will not make our most courageous, authentic decision, the one that truly aligns with ourselves. With attachment, you stay with somebody too long, or you're not willing to face a problem. With attachment, you make a decision at work that's not going to be the most profitable. Perhaps you think it's the most safe and you want to keep everything the same way. But after a while, that gets old, and often, sometimes that is the thing that leads you out of business or gets you fired from the job you love because you didn't grow and expand. But detachment allows you to grow and expand and allow these situations to grow and expand and the people in your life to do it as well. And what does detachment feel like? It feels like you go back to yourself and you breathe and you feel you. And you know that you are separate from the other person and the situation. And it's tricky because in a way we're all one. We breathe the same air, we're made of the same consciousness, the same energy. But in this life, in order to allow things to be, we have to feel some of that separateness to kind of get a sense of us and a sense of the situation and a sense of the people in our lives. And that's how we can come towards a problem. And we recognize that sometimes the greatest, deepest respect we can give to anybody or anything is allowing them to be, is to do our best, to say what we have to say, and then allowing it to grow. And that comes with our children and our relationships and our jobs and our businesses. And it could be very challenging to detach, especially when this thing you want so badly, it's hard to think of breathing without it. But when we detach, we make our best decisions and we help the people around us with the greatest love. And we make, again, the best business decisions and work decisions. And we detach, our heart opens in a way that it can't open otherwise. It opens so deeply because you're in your truest form. You're not grasping for an ending or a conclusion or a thing to be a certain way. You're actually grasping for the best possible outcome in the deepest state of love that you can be in. And that's when you're going to be your best self with everybody, because you're not clinging. Sometimes when we cling to things that aren't true and they're not right and they're not what's best. And we don't give it breath and we don't give it air. But when we don't cling and we detach, we are in our deepest knowing. And when our heart opens up, our presence and our love and our kindness and our respect and our creativity and our intuition, it is so healing for us and everything we touch around us. It's hard to imagine that our best selves can be by letting situations and people be, because we think we have to work so hard and be part of everything that happens in this world. But we don't realize when we detach, we're fearless. We're not clinging. We're actually free. We are free to be our best authentic selves. We are free to tell people the truth. We are free and courageous and resilient to make those decisions that really change us and the people around us and situations around us and ultimately the world. So detachment leads to an elevated self, a more loving self, a kinder self, a wiser self. And again, it could be challenging. And I know I always bring in the maybe, but maybe really also helps me reach a level of detachment, because I also see that I don't know for sure how things are going to work out. And maybe that space will be good for that person or that situation. And maybe I could take a breath and go back to myself and keep my heart open and have more trust in myself and the person and trust for life itself. Maybe everything could still be okay. Maybe I need to let things be and see what happens next. Maybe things aren't as bad as I imagine. And when I do that, I allow space. And when I allow space, I catch myself. I catch who I am, and I could pull back a little bit and give love without interfering as much or meddling as much or controlling as much. And it'll always be a dance for all of us. Again, because certain things mean so much to us. But in that state of detachment, we will meet our greatest self, our highest self, our most loving, kind self. And that's what the people around us need, the situations need, and the world needs. So I hope you think about this idea of detachment. And again, there's nothing negative about it. It's actually the most beautiful state to live in, that we can engage in the world and love, and at the same time not control, and allow things to be. And in allowing, we access more possibilities, more potential. So really, at the end of the day, detachment is part of our path to freedom. Having the courage to live in uncertainty, being able to live in the blessings, knowing that we're not out of time, keeping our heart open, loving and trusting, and always knowing that maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe, A Year Without Men, Maybe Everything's Okay, A Parenting Guide to Less Stress and Worry, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you'd like to buy my Maybe cards or my Maybe digital journal, they're available on Amazon, Etsy, and my Stand store. And most of all, if you like this podcast, I hope you subscribe and leave a comment.